On today's episode of Newsflash, Trump and Biden spar in dueling town halls. Very different from a combative debate. We'll also give you the latest on elections news, COVID-19 news, recap the Supreme Court hearings, and fill you in on what's going on with the election reforms. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in today. You are listening to Newsflash. I really think I should let it play out like that every time. That was very, very good timing, I think. So welcome to the show today. Really do appreciate it. We are starting right with the top today. Donald Trump and Joe Biden sparring far apart, thank goodness, to really avoid what we had like last time in a very, very combative debate. It was a little bit different, but President Trump spoke positively about an extremist conspiracy theory group, expressed skepticism about mask wearing, rebuked his own FBI director, and attacked the legitimacy of the 2020 election in a televised town hall forum on Thursday, veering far away from a focused campaign appeal. And it really, again, we are seeing, I think, clear evidence that we know, or at least Donald Trump's aides know what got him to where he was, which was, to a large extent, this vein of populism, this approach of really hitting people like Joe Biden, hitting people for their ties to the swamp, hitting them for the bad trade deals, for giving things away. And it's really, really tough to do when you don't have the record or don't actually care about those positions, and people are really starting to realize it, and you just give up on them. And that's really clear. That is what Trump has done. He just does not care and cannot be bothered to get back to those things. I think that's probably better for all of us. Yeah, so instead he further stoked the country's political rifts as his Democratic opponent Joe Biden pushed a deliberate message anchored in concerns over public health and promises to restore political norms. Definitely trying to be the normalizing candidate there in what is a kind of a opening paragraph there from the New York Times that a lot of kind of journalism, or at least a lot of right-wing people would be raising their eyes at. Honestly, from what I saw at the Trump town hall, I mean, there were some things where he sounded pretty good. He sounded a lot more kind of coherent. He sounded much more sharp. I mean, he really did prove that he was, in fact, better from COVID-19, as if anyone had any lingering doubts. But, I mean, again, I think he definitely, was off to a little bit of a rocket start, but did calm down somewhat. And was relatively able to say the right things, as untrue as they may be, that were kind of what his aides wanted him to say. So I think he definitely kind of calmed down a little bit in the part that I saw, because I was eventually starting to watch with Biden, but then I kind of switched over to Trump as well, because I want to see how our big boy was doing. I want to check in on him, just make sure he's doing all right. But still, with these people, I really do think it was a very interesting and kind of interesting and like probably more informative night, except for the fact that they were on at the same time. That was the real kind of drawback there, thanks to I believe Team Trump, and just what it was. Trump's defensive and combative performance came on a night that was supposed to feature a debate between him and Biden, but morphed into a long study in contrast on different television networks after the president declined to participate in a virtual debate. On the central issue of the election, the coronavirus pandemic, the two candidates appeared to inhibit not just different television sets, but different universes. Biden has made the full embrace of strict public health guidelines a centerpiece of the candidacy. And honestly, could be a lot more clear and muscled out on that. I mean, we see the current kind of left in opposition in England struggling with that as well. Really, struggling to develop a clear, consistent ideology when it comes to things like restrictions and what should be allowed in terms of the freedom of the people versus the safety of the people, and the economic realities that people have to suffer, and the restrictions there. Like, new restrictions are now being debated all across Europe. I mean, things are being relatively kept to a hold here, but who even knows? We could be behind. Who knows what's coming down the pike, and it's only going to get worse as it gets colder, because the weather, at least in October, where I've been, has been relatively decent. through a lot of this for a very, very long time. So I think it is going to be very, very interesting to see how that continues to get worse. It's clear that most Americans think that it's not going to get better, and that's a big reason why Trump is so far low in the polls right now, because so many Americans think that, yeah, we're going to be dealing with this for the next 6 months. Like, this is going to be a thing that is going to continue to get worse because so many people now have no faith in any sort of governing force or any sort of positive governing influence. That is very, very clear, and I don't think anything that happened tonight assuaged anyone's concerns or changed anyone's minds. I really do not think it. So, yeah, let's take a look at some other things that happened here. So Biden lashed virtually every aspect of the president's handling of the health crisis, including his language on masks, saying, quote, "The words of a president matter. When when a president doesn't wear a mask or makes fun of folks like me when I was wearing a mask for a long time, then people say that must not be important." And perhaps his most incendiary remarks, Trump repeatedly declined to disavow QAnon, a pro-Trump internet community that has been described by law enforcement as a potential domestic terrorism threat. I mean, again, that is not something that should be surprising to anybody. I mean, a large part of QAnon will be in Republican orthodoxy more and more as time goes on. Like, each day, each second, each tick of the clock is a tick closer to QAnon being recognized more and more in Republican orthodoxy. It's an inevitable slow march that's going to happen no matter what, I think. So it's not very surprising there. And again, I don't know. It's not good, but I mean, that's I'm not really at the point anymore where I expect things to be good, like when it comes to President Trump. Like, I don't expect to be like, oh no, QAnon is a bridge too far, and I don't really think anybody else does. But the president professed to have no knowledge of the group, and as a result could not disavow it, but then demonstrated specific knowledge of one of its core conspiracy theories involving pedophilia that is entirely false. I know nothing about it, Trump said. I do know that they're very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard. Yes, so that is the one thing that we definitely know for sure here. When NBC anchor Savannah Guthrie pressed Trump to reject the community's essential worldview and describe some of its most extreme and bogus elements, the president gave no ground. I don't know, he insisted. I don't know. So pretty much like standing in front of Savannah Guthrie, like plugging his fingers in his ear, just going like, la la la, I can't hear you. Like, that is literally what he did here. At the moment Trump was effectively defending a fringe corner of the internet, Biden, the former vice president, was speaking about corporate tax rates and citing the business analysis service Moody's, underscoring the extraordinary gulf separating the two candidates in their worldviews, policies, and connections to factual reality. Oh my gosh, Trump! This is just really speaks like very disingenuous to me, because it's just like, we are looking at a candidate who, like, this is just, again, one of the biggest things of the media is try and kind of normalize both really Biden at the expense of Trump, but in some ways, of course, the media does normalize Trump as well. That's a totally other conversation. But what they're doing here is they're like, oh yeah, Biden's not senile because he knows what Moody's is, because he's been a politician for like 75 years. Like, that is the lowest bar. Like, that is not something that you should be able to come to me and say, oh yeah, he can cite Moody's. He's familiar with the service Moody's, and he's talking about corporate tax rates. He's talking about lowering corporate tax rates or raising corporate tax rates, or does he just know what corporate tax rates are? Like, that is the standard here, that he knows what corporate tax rates are. And I'm supposed to be like, oh my gosh, wow. And if I deny that, if I like complain about that and say maybe, just maybe that's not enough, then of course you don't want a future for your kids and your grandkids. Like, you're foolish. You're gonna cause you're a fascist enabler. Like, that is just the mindset of things right now. Yeah. So, and it's really just kind of a poisonous mindset. It's about growing the economy, Biden said, a political platitude that would fit in an ordinary election year, an illustration in some ways of Biden's central campaign promise to restore stability and a measure of predictability to the White House. And that is really all they want. They literally, what they were was scared because there was a guy who was like, that is to some extent the only real reason why the media challenged Donald Trump the way they did, because he bucked the orthodox. He said the weird things, not because he did. Not really because he did, but because of how he behaved. That was what, for first and foremost, I think really pissed the media, really made the media hate Trump. We're going to take a look at some other election updates now, and it is really something interesting. We finally have some new polls catching up with the news. Let's take a look at them. In a never-ending news cycle that is the 2020 presidential campaign, the polls have kind of lagged behind. But for a moment on Thursday, before the candidates' dueling televised town halls, the polls caught up and they painted a clear picture. President Trump is trailing badly, even though negative developments like his performance at the first debate and Joe Biden, with Joe Biden and his coronavirus hospitalization are well in the rearview mirror. Right now, nationally, Biden is up by 7 in Morning Consult. IBD Tip has him up 6. USC Dorn Life has him up 11. Whitman, who's a Democratic pollster, has him up 10. NBC News, Wall Street Journal has him 9. You could go through here. The most favorable one for Trump found was just down by 8 points. So that would have been an above average result for Biden just a few weeks ago, really showing how in the last few weeks he's expanded his lead to a massive extent. At the start of the week, it seemed like Comey Barrett confirmation hearings might offer the president a positive news cycle, yet instead we've gone through another week without much evidence the president's standing has improved. With no immediate signs that last night's town hall provided a big bump for Trump, he doesn't have many opportunities left. And he seems really, I think the biggest thing that's holding him back, and people I think are really going to be frustrated about this, and I think in his aide group, he just hasn't pivoted back to what he's completely lost his entire messaging that he had in 2016, his entire strategy. He was hitting all those right points. That was the only thing that got him where he was. And now without that, and especially with his poor handling of the coronavirus crisis, he has nothing to go on. Just has not been able to respond, has not been able to face facts. And the entire elite GOP, the entire elected GOP, is more to the right, more crazy than the average on this, but they completely feel the need to go as far right as possible, to the looniest areas of possible, and push them out further. That is the way the GOP operates. The Democratic Party, it's a complete 180. They push to the center all the time, while the GOP pushes more to the right, so therefore the center is inherently more and more to the right. But polls of individual states were a little more encouraging for the president than his national numbers. In Arizona, for instance, 2 new polls found Biden ahead by 4 points, and one found Trump ahead by 1 point. That could be a pretty big and interesting area to watch. Some previous polls have shown Biden farther ahead in Arizona, but in several states, Biden continues to retain a comfortable lead. So Biden up by 4. And Data for Progress, actually, interestingly enough, has Trump up by 1 in Iowa, Biden up by 10 in Maine, which could be very, very good for the Senate chances as well. So you got to figure, this is again for Pan Atlantic Research. Michigan, Biden up 9. That's to say he needs to have, if he can get Civics, has him up by 5 in North Carolina and up by 3 in Ohio. And that is really kind of the area where Trump has kind of gained back some ground. Those kind of crazy. How is he leading their states? Trump has kind of crawled back a little bit ground in there. Pennsylvania, crucial swing state, has right now, very, very crucial swing state, has Biden up by 3. And New York Times, Siena College poll of South Carolina has Trump up by 8, although I do believe it's closer in the Senate. Finally, in Wisconsin, Civics has Biden up by 8. Trafalgar has Biden up by 2, which is quite a bit closer. So interesting thing going on right now in the Susan Collins corner of the world, that main area where we can look at the polls and see Biden's up by 10 there. Which is pretty big. President Trump lashed out at the Republican Senator Susan Collins of Maine on Friday for not supporting the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. And you know who's really not going to like that? Mitch McConnell and the rest of the Republican senators. And that could influence her fundraising.